welcome to a special edition of Just a Recording Podcast. These are desperate times, so we are coming to you with an episode that I thought would be valuable for a lot of people that are currently experiencing what we are going through, not only in America, but in the world. And so I was sitting around having conversations, and obviously we're in quarantine together. And my family, we are all cooped up in a house, and I was having a conversation with one of my nieces, and that would be Erin. You can go ahead and say hi.
Hi.
And I thought it would be really interesting to go over and talk through really how she's experiencing kind of what's happening. This is the first of its kind. It's been, decades and decades since the human population has experienced anything of this nature, and the way that they're really exploiting this is how dangerous as it is. And so I thought that coming to you from a mind of a 16-year-old might be really interesting. It might be really intriguing. Just diving into her take on what she's going through, not going to school, having sports being canceled, really just this disruption in lifestyle that is happening. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get into it. So hi.
Hi.
Are you excited?
I mean, yeah.
Are you nervous?
A little.
So how old are you?
I am 16.
You're 16. And what grade are you currently in?
10th grade.
10th grade. And what sports do you play?
Soccer and swim.
Soccer and swim. And you are right in the middle of soccer season.
For high school.
For high school. And travel, right?
Mm-mm.
Travel was over?
It ends for us to have an opportunity to be on the high school teams.
Yeah. You just threw me under the bus. I'm a bad uncle. I didn't even know that. So you've been out of school for how long?
A week and a half.
A week and a half. No contact. You were doing homework yesterday, though, and today.
And I was just doing it this morning.
You overachiever, you. And so you're still getting homework assignments from the teachers? You're still in contact? Everything's online?
Yep.
So when this first started, let's say months ago, when this virus happened in China, did you think it was as big as a deal as we're currently experiencing?
No.
What did you think about it?
I thought it was just going to be a little problem, and it was just going to stay in China, and then they were going to figure something out. But then it became a pandemic.
Yeah.
So now it's a little worry-free. I mean, not worry-free. It's worrying.
The opposite of worry-free.
Yeah.
Do you know how it spread and how it got to the entire world?
Well, there were several rumors on how it started, but I don't know exactly how it started.
So what do you think? I want to hear what it is that you think kind of happened.
I don't know. I mean, I've heard multiple stories. Like, there was one that somebody ate a bat, and that's how it started. And then another one was somebody walked by this lab and got it. So I don't really know what to believe.
Where are you getting your sources from? Snapchat?
No.
Where are you getting your sources from?
So in my world history class before we start class, we do like what's going on in the world. And so
that's kind of cool.
Yeah. And so my teacher was talking about it, and this kid in the class was like, I was doing all this research, and so said that somebody ate a bat, and that's how it started. And then I saw another thing. It wasn't Snapchat. It was another social media. It was Instagram, that it said that somebody walked by a lab, and that's how they got it. So I don't know what to believe.
Right. And that's the problem with social media now, is anything can be put online, and somebody clicks on it and you're going to believe it, and then you're going to talk to somebody and it kind of spreads rumors.
Yeah.
It's like fake news.
Yep.
I don't even know the answer to that, but there have been, so in Wuhan, they have markets, kind of like how we have farmers markets, but their markets are like much more, I don't want to say extravagant, but much greater of a they have like really weird things. So they have live animals that you can eat. They have like snakes and dogs and cats and like all sorts of different animals. And one of the original thoughts is that there's this like bat soup where it's literally like a soup that has a bat in it. And the person that ate that soup, this virus was inside of the bat, and it got transferred over to human. And basically, what a virus is something that, you know, attacks your cells and infiltrates your cells, and then it really activates your immune system to start to attack the virus. But what happens is when the virus starts and it starts kind of implementing, you know, its mutation on all your cells, your immune system doesn't know which is the good cells and which are the bad cells. So it comes in and starts to kill all of your cellular activity that's going on.
Mm.
Within the case of COVID-19, it's respiratory, so in your lungs. So a lot of your lung cells. So that's why people are having trouble breathing when they get sick, and that's why they die or they're on ventilators. So anyway, the reason why it spread so quickly is because once it got in contact within a human form, with the ability of like us speaking and spreading germs and shaking hands and touching our faces, it quickly spread. And then, you know, right before Chinese New Year, which is the most traveled time in the entire year, is when all Asian families go back to where they're from or where they're raised, and they spend time with their families. And so this really kind of transpired and triggered and transferred to all the different cities within inside of China very, very rapidly because of Chinese New Year. And then you put in contact all the other world population that travels in and out of China and Seoul and South Korea and North Korea. Not North Korea, we don't travel there.
Nope.
But all the other countries that are surrounding in Asia, a lot of people were coming in contact, especially when you're on a plane. And then, you know, that's why if you look at the cities within inside the United States that were affected immediately, it was San Francisco, a hub. Seattle, a hub. New York City, a hub. So all these hubs within inside of these states really got taken over with the virus, and then it just is quickly spreading. So, what do you think? What has changed in your daily life now?
Staying at home 24/7, not being able to go anywhere.
Yeah.
So,
What do you think about that?
I mean, it's annoying, but also I could see why, because we have Steve, my dad, you, grandma, and mom. You have asthma, so that could affect you.
Mm-hmm.
Grandma's 65, right? I think.
Are you asking me?
Yeah, I think so. I think she is.
You should know that.
Yeah, she is.
Okay.
Dad is in his 50s,
Mm-hmm.
and mom is in her mid to late 40s.
Mm-hmm.
So it could affect them,
Yeah.
which is why you guys are making a big deal out of this, because you don't want to get infected, because there's a high risk that you guys could pass away, and that would not be
That would be
that
bad.
would be bad.
Yeah, and we were having this conversation yesterday when I was trying to explain to you how serious this is, and like making sure you're wearing gloves when you're going out, you're washing your hands constantly. And when we were talking, this is kind of what spurred this whole idea. Is it seemed like when I started to say the words "we could die," like it looked like it resonated with you.
Yeah, I did.
And you didn't think that before then.
Mm-mm.
And that's, I think, one of the things that's so interesting is that as a kid, you know, who's 16 in high school, you really kind of think nothing can happen. Like, nothing can happen to you, that you're going to live forever, and that, you know, there's not going to be any issues. And then something like this comes along and you think, oh, it's not going to affect me. I don't know anybody that's gotten sick. I don't know anybody who could be sick. I'm just going to keep on going with my everyday life. So what do you think is going to happen next? Or what do you think is going to come from this? And how do you think it's going to change human behavior?
So, the whole family, we were watching a video, like the TV, and Trump was on the TV talking about some changes that will happen. Like he's saying that we're not going to be taking exams. Um, we're not going to be back into school, maybe at minimum until May 15th. We're going to continue online classes. So it's going to change a lot because seniors aren't going to have a chance to actually have a prom or graduate, because if they didn't have a prom last year, they were probably going to go this year.
Mm-hmm.
So it's probably hard for them, because Davin, my sister, she got her prom dress already and she might not even have a chance to wear it.
Yeah.
So it's changed a lot.
We can have prom here. I have a suit.
I mean,
You'll think she'll want to? No.
Probably
Yeah.
not. Probably not.
Yeah, it was an option.
Yeah,
You
but
could be the DJ.
she
So
wouldn't
that's
like
short
that.
term. What do you think it's going to change long term?
When we're gonna go back to school, because I know some schools get out before we do, so they're gonna have they're not gonna be back into school until August,
Mm-hmm.
maybe. But I feel like another thing that Trump said is that they're gonna give out masks to people, and they're getting more masks and gloves and everything. So I think that that's gonna change a lot, because typically nobody wears those, so we're gonna be seeing a lot of people with those more often. And then
Yeah, the tricky thing with the mask, though, is they don't really help if you're not infected.
yeah,
They don't do anything.
yeah,
What they do is they keep you from touching your face. If you are sick, they help keep all of like your germs, from spreading from that 6 to 10 feet radius in which what they're talking about. So a little bit more short term. So what do you think long term? Like the art of shaking hands, so the whole mentality of shaking a hand originated way, way, way long ago. And I didn't even know this. I just learned this by watching this movie, Pathogen. And that when in the old days, when you would shake somebody's hand, it would show them that you weren't carrying a gun. And that's where the art of handshaking came from. And a lot of disease spread comes from human to human contact. So you think about, like, you see men and women do it a lot in business. Like when you introduce or meet somebody, the first thing to do is to shake your hand. Everyone gets judged by how well or how poorly they can shake hands. When you think about society, getting in an Uber, you're less than 3 feet away from a complete stranger sitting in a car where hundreds and thousands of other people have sat. Germs. Scooters getting around in like a city. You're touching things that other people are touching. Food preparation. So everything is kind of at risk right now of changing and evolving. And how does that make you feel?
I mean, it's crazy to think about, because I would never guess that this would happen to us. So it's a lot to adapt to, and I feel like there's not going to be a lot of handshaking for like the rest of the year, because we don't really know when this is going to end, and how long it's going to be, and how many people it will still affect.
Yeah.
So, but I just think it's crazy though, because of how this happened, and that it could be like somebody can be affected that we know, and we wouldn't know.
Yeah.
Because they could be completely healthy and completely fine and have good lungs, and we can come in contact with them, and then we can get the virus, and then it would spread throughout the whole family.
Yeah.
And then we could all get sick.
Yeah.
So.
And somebody could be carrying it and you don't even know for up to 14 days.
Yep.
So what do you how do you feel about sports not being on? Like all sports are basically canceled.
That took up a lot of my time. So I don't really do anything. I mean, I want to start working out again. So then when it
Oh,
does
do
come
you?
back,
You
yeah,
do?
I do.
Are you
When
sure?
it,
Are
yes,
you sure about that?
yeah. So that when it does come back, I'm in shape and I'm not like everyone else who has just been sitting at home doing nothing
Mm-hmm.
and they'll be out of shape and everything. So
Yeah. What do you think about how China handled it? How do you think they did a good job or do you think they did a bad job handling the situation? And then I'll chime in after you and tell you exactly kind of what happened and things that are being spoken about. So tell me what your thoughts are on how your view or perception of China as an entity handling this global pandemic.
I have a question. Did they know about the coronavirus when Chinese New Year happened or no?
Mm-hmm.
I well then that's not very good because they know that it's a virus and they still had this huge thing where everyone comes together and then they come back they go back to their house and cities and then they spread it and then those people can travel and they won't even think that they have the virus and so then they come in contact with other people from other countries and other cities and affect them. So I don't think that was very smart of them because now it's become a pandemic and it could have been a little epidemic that happened and they could have closed down things and not let them travel. So I think that it was pretty bad that they still let Chinese New Year happen and that everyone came in together. So
Yeah, I mean that wasn't really like the pinnacle of how it started, but um so what's not being spoken about at least out and open is China avoided communicating to the WHO, which is the World Health Organization, just how bad this really was. And they withheld data and they didn't basically publicize what happened and what was going on. And the reason why they're able to do so is because China is run by a dictator. His name's President Xi, and he is in charge and in control and can basically do whatever he wants, and nobody can tell him any different. He controls the media. He controls like certain social media apps aren't allowed in China. It's basically a dictatorship in which he is the end all be all say of anything that can happen. And so what he's doing is he's controlling not only the media, but he's controlling what is being portrayed in the country. So in the beginning, when this first started and it really started to spread heavily in China, he avoided sharing data of the rate of infections to the World Health Organization and the CDC, to which now we are trying to play catch up. And so that's the difficult part of what's happening right now is because China is only going to give you what they want. As like America or Germany or Europe or any of the other countries, they share data so that we can all kind of better society, where China didn't want to look, I guess, maybe weak and share kind of information or basically shut down the country to where they could have contained this with inside their borders. So knowing that, how does that make you feel?
like oh my gosh because he knew about it and knew how many people it affected and didn't say anything about it and didn't do anything about it to help prevent it spreading.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's pretty crappy.
Yeah. Um, I mean, there's a lot of things that they do in China that are very, very different and things that can't be proven, but there's suspicions of what happened. But, you know, that's what happens when you have a country like Russia or like China. You get exactly what they give you, and you have no idea to say if it was right or wrong or whatever it is. And so that's why a lot of conversations are probably going to start to be had after this calms down, like um, punishing China from like a UN standpoint of they could have shared data with the WHO. They could have spread the news a little bit quicker. Um, and what's scary about that now is that China is. You probably have seen posts on Facebook or Instagram or Snapchat that like there's no new cases of coronavirus or COVID-19 in Wuhan, right? Like you see the video of like all the Asian people taking off their masks and it's all like happy. That video came out 2 days later after President Xi kicked out all of the American news reporters. So he kicked out everybody from the New York Times, like the Bloomberg News, CNN, Fox News, basically all the reporters that were reporting for the entire world, mostly the United States. He asked them to leave, and then they started to report that there's no new cases. So, do you believe it or do you not?
No, I don't believe it. Because if they kept the virus to themselves, we don't know if it's true or not if they still have cases.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, and I, there could be also instances in which this virus did come from a facility or a lab that it was man-made, and or there's conspiracy theories that Trump or like the American military infiltrated China and put this disease there and it just got out of hand. There's hundreds of conspiracy theories of what's going on, but what's scary is everything's unknown right now. So what are you doing to buy your time while you're just hanging out at home?
we have puzzles and
Puzzles, yeah.
yeah, homework.
Homework.
Spending time with family, kind of.
Wait a minute, what? This is time.
And then Keelan, my mom, your sister. She put on a sheet, like put sheets on our fireplace of 100 movies that she wants to watch.
Yeah.
While this is going on, so that is something to do.
What movies have you watched?
We have watched.
Wait a minute, you haven't watched some of the movies that we've watched.
I haven't,
Yeah.
but last night.
You just talked about how we're doing things together as a family, and yet you haven't watched the
Well,
movie.
Whatever. But last night, Davin and I watched Charlie's Angels.
You did. I saw that. I did not watch that movie. Thank God.
Why?
It wasn't on the top 100 movies to watch.
So?
Pretty sure Charlie's Angels didn't make the cut.
Okay.
So what else are you doing by the time?
Sleeping.
Sleeping. So I think what you should make sure that you're doing is like staying in a routine, right? Like getting up, taking a shower, working out, trying to get outside, not staying cooped up inside. Treating each day as if you were going to school or you were going out to do things instead of like the monotony of not doing anything. Because it is okay to not do anything. It's okay to just sit. But what I want to make sure, and why I keep asking you, like, how does it make you feel? Are you scared? Is fear is a lowering of one's vibration. When I say vibration, that means like your higher self, your higher being, like keeping with inside like your chakra energy and making sure that you're vibrating at a higher level. Because when you start to introduce fear into your mind and what it is that you're thinking about and having negative thoughts, what happens is it can impact your immune system. And so when you start like uncertainty, right? Like right now we're in a time of major uncertainty, and as scary as it may seem, really focusing on what this is doing. You know, a lot of people are posting like the world or Earth, you know, like sent us all to our rooms because of all the damage we've been doing to the environment. And you could look at that as like super scary and like, oh my God, if I go outside, I might die, or, you know, or you can look at it and say, look at all the positive things that are happening in the world right now, right? Like, you know, pollution is down by, you know, at least 70%. You know, the canals in Venice are super crystal clear. There's dolphin in Italy where there haven't been in years. You know, LA, the smog is completely gone. The skies are crystal blue. You know, there's kids in China that are seeing the sky for the first time. You know, think about that. Like in over 30 years, people are seeing, you know, the sky in certain areas and cities. And so there's a lot of positive to look at this instead of looking this at from a fear base, because when you continue to look at it in a way of like, this is scary and people are dying, which it's very, very serious, and I think it needs to be taken seriously. I think there's also a way to look at it and not get yourself in a mindset of like, oh my God, this is so scary, what's going on, I can't believe this is happening, to let me just make sure myself and my family are safe, and let me continue and maybe learning something new, like reading a book, doing homework, exercising, keeping your normal routine to help you get through this, not only physically but mentally. So what do you think about all that?
I mean, yeah, that's a good idea to do, because I know that a lot of people's daily things are changing, and because some people can't even go to their jobs right now
Mm-hmm.
because of the risk of the virus spreading. Like fast food restaurants are doing to go orders and drive throughs because they don't want people to sit in there because they don't know where they've been and what they've touched. So,
Yeah.
but it's changing a lot because a lot of people are stressing out and going to grocery stores. Like if you look at all the grocery stores, everything's being sold out, like the toilet paper and the paper towels, hand sanitizer. Like those are big things, but I feel like it's just going to change everybody's like daily lives because we're all going to have to stay at home and a lot of things are going to change. Like gas money's dropping a lot.
Do you know why gas is dropping?
No.
So the prices of gas dropping have nothing to do with, they have a little bit to do, but they don't really have, when it started, they don't have anything to do with COVID-19 or
Mm-hmm.
coronavirus. And so the reason why gas dropped so much is Russia started challenging Saudi Arabia, which Saudi Arabia is the largest oil producer in the world. They basically control a very large percentage of oil. So what happened is Russia started to argue and get into a bidding war. So what happens is gas just doesn't come from the earth. Oil comes from the earth. They then process down the oil and turn it into gas. So the price per gallon for gas is determined by the price per barrel of oil. So oil barrels, which is what comes from the oil fields, which comes from Venezuela, Alaska, some parts of California, some parts of the United States, Texas, and Russia, but mainly Saudi Arabia, is these oil barrels. And so Russia and Saudi Arabia got into a bidding war, and because Saudi Arabia has such a large margin in oil. Do you understand what a margin is?
Mm-hmm.
So you do understand what a margin is?
Mm-hmm.
So Saudi Arabia has the ability to lower the price of a barrel so much that they can still make a profit, where America or Venezuela or Russia, they can't lower it as far as they did. So what Saudi Arabia did was basically say, screw you to everyone else. We're going to lower the price of an oil barrel as low as we can to where we're still making a profit, but we know that everyone else can't hit it. So they're pinching all these other countries out. So that is why oil and gas has dropped so significantly. Because typically, if you think back to like 9/11 or what's another crazy thing that happened in the world. So if you think back to any type of pinnacle moment, you're probably too young to remember 9/11, but what happened was gas went up to like $6 a gallon because everyone was in a fear of like what was going to happen. People were stockpiling gas. And so this has the reverse effect on that simply because of this bidding war that Russia and Saudi Arabia are going through.
Okay.
Okay, we sidebarred a little bit. So you're also saying how this is changing daily lives, and what do you think it's going to happen? So what are your thoughts on all the people that are losing their jobs and basically the financial system on the verge of collapsing?
I think that it's um a big deal because a lot of people depend on their job to help pay for food, to pay for their house, to pay for food and water for their kids if they have kids.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it's going to be hard for them because they're depending on their jobs, but now they can't depend on it because some people work like 3 jobs to help pay because there's different financial spots where everyone is. So, like the wealthy, they're fine. The poor, it's going to be a hard struggle for them because of the of COVID-19 affecting everything and how it's affecting the way people are living. Like some, like grandma Barbara, she's working at home,
Mm-hmm.
so she can still be getting paid, as well as Steve, my dad.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just gonna change the way people can financially help themselves and to have food and water and clothes, and so it's just gonna affect a lot of people, I think.
Yeah. Do you understand um, like unemployment and what that means and how that impacts the country?
Not really.
So, the unemployment rate just recently hit its lowest that it's ever been. I think it was like 3%. It's the lowest it's ever been. They're saying that the unemployment rate could go to 30% within a matter of 3 weeks. So, if you think about like all the restaurants, all the hotels, all the sporting industries, airlines, like anything where it's human to human contact, right? Like think all the servers and bartenders and all that, like they're out of the job. They're out of the job right now. So what happens is when all these people go on unemployment, they file for unemployment. The government then sends them a check each month or every 2 weeks to help support them to get them through. There's not enough money in unemployment to be able to support the masses that are going to be unemployed due to what's currently happening. So, when you think about the financial system, if nobody has any money, that means nobody can spend any money, which means businesses can't make money, which means stocks are going to start to collapse because people can't sell anything. Then basically it'll cripple the economy in America, which will then trickle to the European Union, which will then go to China. And so it has like a domino effect of all these financial systems. So now hearing like what that could do starting here and then trickling to everywhere else, what do you think about that?
It's a big deal because then a lot of people aren't going to know what to do, and that's going to, I feel like the death rate is going to go up because of starving, because they're not going to be able to buy food because businesses are going to go down, like grocery stores and restaurants. So, I mean, it's a big deal.
Do you understand why so many people in other countries are dying from the disease or
Um,
from the virus?
no.
So, the healthcare system, right? They have like a maximum amount of beds in the entire United States, right? That's what our healthcare system is. Let's just say, for numerical reasons, to be easy, it's 100,000. And currently, right now, 80,000 people are in the hospital. Has nothing to do with COVID-19. Coronavirus has nothing to do with that. So we only have 20,000 beds that are available. So what people are trying to say is that to beat the curve, right? So right now the amount of infected is increasing at such a rapid rate that that's why we're doing social distancing, and that's why we're staying away from everybody, so that we can try and really like bend the curve of the rate of infection. Because if the rate of infection goes so high, the amount of people that would need to be hospitalized and be put on ventilators far surpasses the amount of available beds that we have in the healthcare system. Do you understand what that
Mm-hmm.
means? So when you take a country like Italy, the reason why so many people are dying in Italy is, one, the age is really, really high in Italy. Two, they're smokers. And three, they didn't get ahead of social distancing or quarantining until it was far too late. And so they hit the maximum amount of beds that their healthcare system was able to withstand. And then people in the healthcare industry started to get sick because they weren't doing proper sanitizing or keeping themselves a distance away from the infected. And so that started to really cripple their healthcare. That's why there's so many deaths. When you hear that there's so many more deaths in Italy than there were in China. So, do you understand what that means?
Mm-hmm.
Explain it back to me.
So basically, there's other people who are in the hospital for different medical reasons,
Mm-hmm.
and so that limits to what hospitals can do, and so people are dying because they're not getting the proper care for the virus. So it they die because of how poorly they're being, like, because they don't have the medicine and proper care to help fight it off
Yeah.
and to at least try. So
So now that you're hearing a lot about this, does it make you more scared?
yeah. Yeah.
Did you know a lot of the things that we're talking about or that I'm telling you?
Nope.
Why do you think you didn't know that? Do you think maybe you just weren't paying close attention, or you didn't think that this could affect you, or you didn't know the impact that it had?
I didn't know the impact and the actual information.
Yeah.
So, because like we were talking about earlier, there's a lot of things that can be said that aren't true.
Mm.
So, it's hard to believe what is true and what is not true.
Yeah.
So,
And plus, you're only 16.
yeah. So,
Um. So, what do you think is going to happen after now knowing all this information? What do you think is going to happen next?
like with me or with everything?
Let's start with everything and then end with you.
um, I think there's going to be like a really bad downfall with everything, and it's going to be hard to get back up because if people aren't getting jobs, and they might not be able to afford the medical care for the virus if they get it, and it's going to cause a lot of deaths, and I feel like it's just going to affect a lot of people, like worldwide, not just in the United States. So,
What about you?
um Well, I don't smoke.
Yeah.
And I'm pretty healthy.
Mm-hmm.
So, um
Not so much as a health standpoint. I think just as a physical, mental, just an impact.
I think it's going to change me for the way I'm going to start doing things. Like, I think it's changed a lot that I don't have school and I don't have school soccer. So it's just going to be hard just sitting at home doing nothing. Like, it's hard to not see my friends on a daily basis because I always see them at school and everything. And, like, our Disney trip got taken away for spring break, and I was excited for that.
Yeah.
But it got taken away because of the coronavirus, because Disney is a pretty popular place.
Yeah.
So I think that it's gonna affect me a lot, and in a negative and a positive way. But so yeah,
What's the positive way it's going to affect you?
um, kind of like for like college to see how it is to be on my own, because I know how some teachers go, like they give you assignment for the year and they want you back at the end of the year to take a test. So it's kind of like it's my it's my responsibility to do my schoolwork like online, and um to do things on my own, kind of.
Yeah.
You know what I'm trying to say?
Yeah.
So
I think it's a good reminder to also know like how, and for you and your sisters to realize like how fragile life is. And not to say that I want you guys thinking about that because you're young and you should be having fun, but having fun with a common sense of knowing you're not going to live forever, like nothing's guaranteed, tomorrow is never promised, and enjoy the time that you're spending now. And maybe that's a good idea that you're recognizing that it's tough because you're not seeing your friends, where you're talking to them via FaceTime, or you're having like a I don't want to say you're having a Zoom meeting, but like having like a FaceTime chat and having like a group meetup with all your friends, and try and keep them normal, because you might be dealing with this very fine and like enjoying your time alone, where they might be going stir crazy, or maybe their parents aren't working and they need just some sanctity of like a a version of normalcy, because everything is so unknown in what's happening. And so, what do you think are things that you can do, or do you have any thoughts of what you can do to really help,
help my friends, or
or society, or yourself, or your sisters?
um I think that not talking about the virus helps like people like calm down, like talk about other things to get their mind off of it, that
Mm-hmm.
this is going on, and like maybe talk about school and what they're doing like with their schoolwork, and or maybe change the subject, like what have they been doing, or something, like just something that's not focusing on the virus to get their mind off of it, because I know a lot of people miss going to school and seeing their friends and hanging out. So I think maybe talking to them on FaceTime and texting them to check up on them and see how it is, and to change, like just to not mainly focus on the virus is like a good thing, because um so I know some people are taking this like very seriously. So I think that them being able to have like a normal conversation without the virus being brought up is a good thing.
Yeah, I think that's good. I think making sure that you're staying as normal as possible, and maybe working out with Uncle Pat when he wants to work out instead of skipping.
I haven't skipped.
You have never worked out with me
Over summer I did.
over the sun. Do you know how long ago that was?
That was a long time ago.
Exactly. Maybe getting outside, walking, getting some fresh air, maybe reading a new book. Maybe learning how to play an instrument.
I already did that in middle school. The trumpet.
Why don't you learn a new instrument and drive us all insane? Cool. So you learned something new today. You learned a couple things.
Mm-hmm.
What did you learn?
What's going on out of the country, what's going on in the country, and how it's financially and like medically it's affecting people.
Mm-hmm.
So
what else?
How it kind of started,
Mm-hmm.
and
We suspect.
yeah, from the rumors.
Yeah.
And that China kept this huge thing and the death rate and everything to themselves. So
Yeah. So now the question is, are you going to do anything about it?
I mean, what can I do about it?
Well, I think the thought is starting with yourself and your family, making sure that you're making an impact, maybe not fighting with your sisters.
That's a natural thing. You can't even deny it.
Yeah, I guess I can. Cool. Well, I think we did it.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think? This is your first podcast. You've been seeing me do this a lot, and I thought that it would be fun to talk to a 16-year-old about COVID-19, aka coronavirus. I was going to say cool. I was the early adapter of saying it's COVID-19 instead of calling it coronavirus.
I like COVID-19 better.
Yeah, it sounds cool, right?
Yeah.
COVID-19, as serious as we need to be.
Yeah.
What else? Anything else? You want to say anything? The mic's yours. You can say whatever you want.
Wash your hands.
That's a good one. That was I'm impressed. Wash your hands. Don't touch your face. Don't touch your face. We're gonna have to sanitize the mics when we're done.
Yep.
What else? Maybe wear gloves, right?
Yeah.
Wear gloves when you go to the store, when you go out.
Make sure it'll wash your hands after everything you touch, because you don't know who has touched it and if they have it or not.
Yeah. Washing your produce very well. Eating healthy, right? Keeping your immune system. That's why I keep making you guys smoothies every day.
Mm-hmm. They're good too.
I'm glad that you like them. Cool. Well, I appreciate you sitting in with me and letting me talk to you about COVID-19. Okay.
Okay.